Hello everybody. I'm doing pose of the month, and this month we're going to do child's pose, which I call resting pose, and in Sanskrit it's called Balasana. It's a great pose, as I call it, a resting pose. So it's a great pose to rest in, just relax. I'm going to show you later in the video how to make it restorative. It's a transitional pose, typically in a yoga class, so when we're flowing from going forward and going up, it's typically a pose we take a little bit of a break in. I encourage my students to spend as much time there as they want, and it's a go-to pose if they do need a break. It's a great stretch for our thighs, for our hips, for our low back, and because 60% of our lung capacity is in our back body, it's a great position to put our body in to really notice the expansion of the rib cage as the lungs take in our breath. So you can practice your 3-part breath there and really notice that flow of the breath coming in and going out, and the sensation of getting that nice deep breath, so that breath moves down deep into the lungs. So let's get into the pose. So we start on our knees and take them just a little bit wide, and that depends on you. So it depends on your body, depends on what feels comfortable to you. Some people like to take them right to the outside edges of your mat. Some people keep them in a little bit closer. I kind of go halfway between those 2 points. I bring my big toes together. I start to lean forward. So in the traditional pose, we extend the arms. Take a nice big inhale, lengthen through the spine, and then exhale, we sink down towards the heels. And we just rest the head on the floor, and we kind of nestle into the inner thighs. So I like to rock a little bit. It helps me nestle a little bit in there. It helps me determine how far apart my knees should be. And then I'm just going to move my arms. So you'll notice that my head is kind of resting kind of partway up the forehead, even closer to the hairline. And that's not super comfortable for my neck. I feel like I can be more comfortable in my neck. So what I want to do is take my head out a little bit. So just readjust so that I'm resting more on my third eye or closer to my eyebrow line. Now in my case, I have a larger nose, so it does hit the floor when I do this, but my neck feels a little bit longer and better. So there you go, that's the traditional pose. Now there's lots of variations. So traditionally, we have the arms extended, but maybe that doesn't feel good to you today or in this moment. So we can take the arms and we can bend the elbows, make more of a diamond shape. That takes some of the pressure off of the shoulders. We can take the hands and stack them and rest our forehead on that. And it gives us a little bit of leverage. And it also, in my case, takes my nose up off the floor, so I'm able to breathe a little better in this position. And then just allow the shoulder blades to glide down the back if we brought those arms in. You can also make fists and stack them to give yourself a little bit of lift as well. So as you breathe here, whatever arm position you're in, notice the capacity of your lungs as you expand. You should almost feel like you're breathing, kind of like I say in class, like gills of a fish. You can feel them expand as you widen and release, and you sink a little bit more, you nestle a little further in. So you can hold here. Now we can also take the arms to our sides, especially if shoulders need a break. Again, you just want to make sure that the neck is nice and long. Now I've seen some people take their head and turn it to the side when they do this. You just want to make sure you get evenness in your movement. So partway through class, you want to switch to the other side. Now there's other variations. First of all, if that's really uncomfortable for our knees, perhaps we've had knee surgery, we've had a joint replacement or whatever, we can come up to what's called puppy dog pose. So we don't bend the knees as much. It takes some of the pressure off the knees. So we're just up on our forearms with our hips lifted a little bit more. Something else we can also do is take a blanket and maybe roll it up a few times and take it and place it in between our knees. And that just gives us that little bit of lift so that we don't bend the knees as much, and we come back into the pose there. Okay, and again, I like to always do that little nestling in there. Maybe that's uncomfortable for our ankles. So same thing, we can take a blanket, rolled up a few times, and then just bring it to where our ankles rest on the floor. So it gives that support for the ankles if we have any issues with our ankle joint. So same thing. And then, as I said earlier, we can also make this pose restorative, which means we can hang out there and rest and relax into it and really focus on our breath. So you're going to want a bolster or a bunch of solid pillows that will support you. Now this is a smaller bolster than I probably would use if I was going to hold it to be restorative, just because I feel like it won't support my body. So what I'm actually going to do is take a blanket, roll it up a few times to give me that lift, and I know that that's going to work for me. I personally also like a block at the end of here, so if I want to rest my head on it, I can. So some bolsters are going to be long enough that you can rest your head on it, and some aren't, and it maybe depends on the position of where you want that bolster, and it's up to you to play with positioning for what feels best. So we take that bolster, we put it between our thighs, and again, we come into that position for our resting pose. Inhale, we find length. Exhale, we kind of wrap ourselves down around that bolster so we're supported by it. And that's the whole point in a restorative pose, that we have that support so that we can rest in the pose. So I like to rest my head, and I'm going to nestle in a little bit more here. So I like to rest my head on the block so it keeps the neck long and I have that support. Now normally I would probably put a little towel or a face cloth or something over it just to have that cushioning. And then your arms can come out. So what we don't want to do here is be reaching and stretching, but we want our arms to be supported. And then again, I like to rock a little bit, nestle into it, and then just really think about relaxing the muscles and let them be supported by all these props that I'm using. And it feels so good just to hang out here. So there's your restorative child's or resting pose, Balasana. So if you're doing this with me and you've set yourself up to be here, feel free to just hang out here and just let me finish talking, and you continue on with your day whenever you want to. But for now, that's it. I hope you learned something a little bit. I hope you know that you can always change your resting pose in class. Don't let the teacher force you into taking it in a certain way. You do what's best for your body and what feels good to you. So until next time, namaste.